Hello everyone, thank you very much for joining us for another story here at Annie Narrates. The title for today's story goes like this. Husband betrayed his mom and sold her jewels to make money, but 11 years later, mother-in-law comes knocking on my door with a lawsuit because he told her this. Hello, I have a few things on my mind and I thought I would share it. But first, a question. Do you ever get that gut feeling that makes you think that something is going to go wrong and that you can't do anything to stop the inevitable no matter how hard you try? That's what I had been feeling for a few months since my husband and I separated. There were many reasons for this separation, which I will get into later because now I have to deal with the aftermath of what he's done. Here is some context. I met my husband Josh, 37 male, when I moved to his city for a diploma that I was doing at the time. I was fresh out of college with an undergraduate degree in organic chemistry and wanted to branch out and learn its more practical applications. The makeup, skincare, and beauty industry fascinated me. When I got the opportunity to do a diploma that combined the two specialties, I had to take it. Even if it meant moving out of state to a completely new place where I barely knew anyone. I was young and very passionate and took it up as a challenge. One of my classmates introduced me to Josh and we hit it off instantly. We were both 23 at the time, and Josh had also just graduated from college and worked at a car dealership as a salesman. He was funny and charming and was clearly trying to impress me, and I definitely was impressed. He used to take me out on test drives in the fanciest cars, and he could get away with it because everyone at work liked him. It might sound stupid now, but I used to find it romantic. We started dating eventually after he asked me out on my birthday a few months later. Josh lived with his mother and younger brother. His father had passed away a couple of years ago, so it was just the three of them. I was nervous to meet them, but I figured that now was a better time than ever to do so. Our meeting went on surprisingly well. His mother Nancy was sweet to me. She was polite and asked me a bunch of questions about what I was studying. Our entire conversation was polite and actually quite fun. His younger brother, who was a teenager at the time, was also very pleasant. Overall, our interaction was good. If Nancy disliked me, she did a pretty good job of hiding it. Over the next 2 years, I met them only a couple more times, partly because I was extremely busy with work and studies, and partly because Josh kept putting off plans with them. One Christmas, I wanted to have a good family meal and celebrate with everyone, so I decided to invite Josh's family over. Josh was very hesitant when I told him, and he said that he didn't want them over. I was puzzled. When I pushed him for more, he told me that he and his mother had a huge falling out more than 6 months ago, and it was because of me. Apparently, his mother thought that I was only with him because he had financial stability because of his job at the dealership, whereas I was broke. My diploma was useless, and I was earning a measly stipend that would never be able to support me. Nancy warned him that I was going to leave him after I found a richer man, and it was his responsibility to look after the family now that he was the man of the house. Josh started defending me, and one thing led to another, and that's when Nancy said that he had to make the choice between his family and me. He chose me, and they haven't been in contact since. I was speechless, firstly because so much had happened 6 months ago that I had no idea. It also surprised me that Nancy thought of me in that way because the few times we did meet, I always thought that she liked me. I was offended, but I wanted to clear things up. I was not with Josh for his money. He barely made much from his job. I was with him because I loved him, and that was it. Josh had been living with me for the past few months, but I was the one paying all the bills and the rent. I hadn't even asked Josh once to contribute, so I have no idea where these accusations were stemming from. I asked Josh whether I could speak with Nancy, but she told me that she didn't want anything to do with us and that trying to meet her would just worsen things. I was extremely hurt and maybe I was immature, but after hearing all that, I didn't want to speak to her either. Toward the end of my diploma, I decided to apply for a job in a skincare company and I got in. The only issue was that it was in a different state. I didn't know how to break this news to Josh because moving to a new place was scary, especially for him because he already had a job and family here. He took the news surprisingly well. In fact, too well. He seemed eager to leave. He told me that he was beginning to feel trapped here and a change of scenery would be helpful. I told him that it was a huge commitment and he shouldn't make big decisions in the heat of the moment just because of me. But then he got on one knee and asked me to marry him. I was stunned. He apologized for not having a ring, but I honestly couldn't care less. This man was willing to uproot his entire life just for me. I said yes. We didn't have money. We didn't have any idea what we were doing. But at that moment, we knew we would find a way. I wanted to share the news with his family. Maybe now they would change their minds. Josh said he would personally tell them the news first and see how they took it before bringing me. Things didn't go as planned. Josh said that his mother yelled at him and told him that he made the wrong choice. Things got even worse when he told her that we were moving. He pleaded with her to give me one chance, but she told him that she didn't want to see either of us again and slammed the door in his face. I was furious and wanted to tell her a few choice things myself. Josh calmed me down and told me to just let it go. In a month we would be moving and we didn't have to deal with this drama again. We could start this new chapter of our lives on a clean slate. I completed my diploma and we moved a week later. I kept asking Josh if he would like to meet his family before leaving, but he denied it. The first 6 months after moving were pretty hectic. I had my new job and Josh was trying to get a job but with no success. About a month after moving, Josh got a phone call from his ex-coworker from the dealership. They were planning on expanding to our city and wanted to meet Josh to see if he could manage the dealership there. This was great news because things were getting pretty tight financially. Josh flew back to meet with them and came back the next day saying that the deal was on and that he was planning on starting a new dealership here. I was overjoyed. He then got on one knee again and pulled out a beautiful ring. He said that he felt so bad for not having a ring when he initially proposed. He started saving to buy me this. I was in tears of joy. The ring must have cost a lot. I was so touched by this gesture. I had also been saving for the wedding, and my parents thankfully pitched in as well. We got married in a small, intimate ceremony, and things were great. Not long after the wedding, I got pregnant. This was a little unexpected because it was too soon, but we were happy nonetheless. Josh was working on starting his car dealership with a partner. He didn't tell me much about it, but he had found interested investors and they were planning on opening soon. One night he came home absolutely drunk, saying that they got a huge deal with an investor and even found a perfect place to start the business. He was so confident that the dealership would work out that he said that he wanted to move out of our tiny apartment to a much bigger place to make space for the baby. I thought he wasn't serious because he was so intoxicated, but the next day he still felt the same. I was so happy. Things were just falling into place. During the course of my pregnancy, we moved to a better place and we also bought a new car. I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, Mila. I started my maternity leave. Things were doing great. But then I started noticing red bumps all over Mila, especially her face. It was like she had cystic acne and her skin was always red and inflamed. I didn't know what caused it. I double-checked all her soaps and body washes, but could not find out the problem. As she grew, it just got worse. Josh started blaming me for this. He said that while he was working hard, he expected me to make sure that our baby was healthy. I was being a negligent mother, and she was suffering because of this. I remember crying that night. I already felt terrible, and Josh was not helping. He took the baby to the dermatologist, and she was diagnosed with baby acne, and she had a very severe case of it. There were many causes, but one of them was because it was from the hormones in the breast milk. Josh caught on to this point and kept blaming me again. I was shattered. I stopped breastfeeding and moved to formula, but to no avail. I tried all creams and lotions that the doctor recommended, but nothing seemed to work. Josh had now started drinking every day. He would go early and come back home from work super late and did not help out with Mila. Things were not working out at the dealership, and he was always in a foul mood. When it was time for me to go back to work, Josh shamed and guilt-tripped me for leaving my sick baby behind. He would taunt me every day and did nothing to help out. Moreover, I was scared to leave Mila with him alone because he drank all the time. This was beginning to affect my mental health, and I quit my job. Mila was 8 months old at the time. Over the next few months, after trying everything, I decided to make a homemade cream for Mila. This was made from organic ingredients. I used my knowledge from before just to see if anything would work. I would apply it every night on her face, and within a week, the changes were noticeable. I was over the moon. By the time she was a year old, her skin was completely fine. No pimples, no redness, nothing. My home remedy had worked. I remember sharing it with some of my mom friends, and it worked on them too. One of my friends who was on Facebook posted a before and after photo of her teen's face after using the cream, and that went viral. I posted a video talking about some of the ingredients that I used and how it helped Milla's skin, and soon, a few moms in the area began asking if I could make some for them. The number kept increasing. I was so unhappy in my marriage, and Josh had changed so drastically. This was like an escape for me. Josh had lost all our savings on the dealership, which failed. Now he just sat at home all day, nagging me for wasting time with my Hocus Pocus cream. The word spread about my cream, and within a few months, I was approached by a cosmetic company offering to commercially sell my product. I was shocked. I never expected this kind of response. They said that they would provide a factory space and manage all the distribution. However, I was responsible for sourcing all the ingredients, labor, packaging, and so forth. It was my dream to do something in the beauty industry. It always had been. But I knew that there were going to be risks, and I did need a pretty sizable amount of starting funds. Josh had used up almost all of our savings. I sold whatever jewelry I had and managed to collect some funds, but it was nowhere close to how much I needed. Josh had no job, and it was up to me to make sure that things still ran smoothly. I had to sell the engagement ring. When I told Josh, he was furious. And I mean, it was valid. I explained to him that this was a sacrifice that I had to make for our family, and after a lot of tantrums, he finally agreed. Selling that ring was the best decision of my life. I got $8,000 for it, which was way more than I bargained for. I agreed to take the deal with the company as soon as I found reliable vendors for my raw materials, a person to design and produce my packaging, and even employed a few of my mom's friends to help out. It was a long and tough journey. I worked day and night trying to come up with the proper formulation, scents, flavors, and ingredients. I made various versions of my product for different age groups and even tried experimenting with new products, all while managing Milla. Josh offered no help even though he stayed at home. It was clear that he was jealous. The orders kept coming and my products kept selling. I was shocked to see people buy and enjoy it. Seeing the results was the biggest reward. Once I started earning pretty well, things started getting better with Josh. We even had a second daughter. But this was short-lived. As my company kept growing, thanks to the help of social media, Josh kept getting insecure. I would get called to speak at conferences, talking about my experiences, and he would never support me. We lived in the same house, but I could tell that the love between us was long gone and we were keeping it together for the kids. I was focused on my business, which was booming, and my kids. However, I reached my breaking point when one day, I was going through my accounts and I found that a certain amount of money was being debited every month from the company account under my name. I don't remember doing such a thing. I put two and two together, and I realized that Josh was the one who was stealing money from the company under my name and had been doing so for around 6 months now, and I had no clue. When I confronted him, he completely denied it, but then after a huge fight, he admitted to it and called me vile names. I had had enough. I couldn't have this man around my daughters anymore. He was a pathetic excuse of a father and husband. He did nothing to help me. He demotivated and blamed me to the point where I thought that I had no power, and then he stole from my company. I wanted nothing to do with him anymore and decided that it was best we separated. As expected, he put up a huge fight. He accused me of taking his children away, making them hate him. He said that I owed him everything and that I would be nothing without him. He was pulling at straws because I was his only source of income. I knew that I couldn't live with him anymore. I had put up with this ridiculous behavior for 9 years, and I was done. He left home by the next week and started living in an apartment by himself. It was after this that I got the feeling of dread, that he was going to do something and ruin everything I built. Barely 2 months after our separation, I was at home with the kids and I heard someone at my door. I was surprised to see that it was my mother-in-law, who I hadn't seen in almost 11 years. She looked at me with disgust, and before I could even say anything, handed me an envelope. It was a lawsuit accusing me of stealing jewelry estimated to be worth around $40,000. This was done 11 years ago, and I had to return the jewelry or give her the money within a few months. I was utterly perplexed. I had no clue what this was about. I asked her to come in so that we could discuss it. Nancy looked annoyed but agreed. When she saw my daughters, she practically teared up. This was the first time she had seen them, but there was still so much confusion. Nancy told me that Josh had told her everything, and now she wants her jewelry. When I asked for some clarity, she told me that Josh had come to visit her last month after running away 11 years ago with no trace, and told her how I had convinced him and blackmailed him into stealing her jewelry. Apparently, I was the one who forbade him from talking to his family, saying that I would leave him and accuse him of domestic violence if he had contact with them. I was also the one who got pregnant purposely and gave him an ultimatum to marry me. When he said he didn't have the money to start a family, I convinced him to steal his mother's jewelry, including her wedding ring, the one he gave me, so that we could run away and start fresh in a new city. He begged and cried because he didn't want to hurt his mother, but then I said that I would abort the baby and leave him if he didn't. So, out of desperation, frustration, and concern for our baby, he stole his mother's jewelry. I was the one who trapped him in a loveless marriage, took all his money to start my business, which apparently was his idea, was a terrible mother, and now that I was rich, I wanted to divorce him. He was finally free from his shackles and ran to his mother to tell the quote-unquote truth. I was stunned. I couldn't believe that Josh had done this. I had tried explaining everything to Nancy as best as I could. How Josh had told me that she didn't want anything to do with me. How he had no problem moving with me to a new city. I told her how I had no idea about her jewelry and swore that I never blackmailed him in any way. I was never pregnant when we moved. I got pregnant more than after a year after we moved, and they could check Mila's age for proof. I also told her how I was sure Josh had wasted all the money he got at the car dealership. The only thing that I had was the ring, which I sold to start my company years ago. But I had no idea that it was hers. I told her how he was jobless for the past 6 years, mooching off me. He was an absent father and husband, and he even stole from me. I showed her proof of everything, all the receipts, bills, anything that I could find to prove that I wasn't guilty. I never asked him to steal. I had no idea about it. After a conversation that lasted hours, Nancy was still not fully convinced. She was as shocked as I was. For years, we thought the other person was the enemy, when it was Josh the whole time. It was a lot to digest, but we plan on meeting with Josh to sort out this whole thing and expose his lies. I am furious that he has destroyed 2 families for years, and he needs to pay. Hi y'all, a lot has happened this past month, but first, I went through all the comments, and yes, I agree. I should have left him a long time ago, but it's easier said than done. A part of me was still hoping that he would change, but please stop calling me stupid. I know. Thank you for all your support. You guys are helping me more than you think. Okay, Nancy and I met up with Josh and we told him that the game was up. I showed him all the receipts that I had shown Nancy previously. I confirmed Mila's birthday, proving that I wasn't pregnant at the time and there was no way that I could have blackmailed him. The biggest proof of all was his partner whom he has started the dealership. I got in contact with him a few nights ago and he all but confirmed everything. Josh had received no call from his previous workplace so that they could expand in the city. Josh had promised him that he would be getting a large sum of money soon to start the dealership. Remember that time he went back for a few days to meet his ex-coworker? Yeah, that was when he stole the money. Nobody suspected him because no one was in contact with him and had no idea where he was. Josh sold the jewelry and invested in the dealership, which failed, and now he had nothing. In fact, he had even borrowed money from his partner, which he has yet to return. He sent me all the transactions that took place during this time. Josh put money in the account every time he sold the jewelry. Everything added up. This was undisputed proof, and even his own mother didn't believe him. All he needed to do was confess. He denied everything, calling all of us liars. He kept saying that I was the reason for everything. I emotionally manipulated him into doing things he never wanted to do. It was pathetic. He had everything pointed against him, and he still found a way to blame me. Nobody was buying his story anymore, and Nancy was just as disgusted and disappointed in him as I was. I knew deep down that she wished all this was a lie and that Josh was innocent. But after showing her all the evidence that I was absolutely not involved in this, she had to see reason. I threatened to get lawyers involved if he didn't admit that he was guilty, and that would lead to an even more lengthy trial, and he was already in debt. About 2 weeks ago, he finally confessed to everything. Nancy changed the lawsuit to him, and now he has to pay her $5,000 a month until he pays back what he owes. I don't know how he's going to do that, but it isn't my problem anymore. Oh, and I also filed for a divorce. I feel great. Nancy and I have gotten rather close since this whole fiasco. It's been a couple of months now, and she's living with us currently so that she can get to know the girls, and I actually like having her around. So do the girls. She's having a great time being a grandma, and I feel terrible that she didn't get to experience all this sooner because of Josh and his lies. She's also taken a keen interest in my company and visits often, sometimes even helping out with the packaging, and I'm grateful that she's making an effort despite our history. Josh got a new job. He's been paying his debt back so far. He sold his car. I do feel bad sometimes, but then I remember how terrible he has been to so many people over the years. I tolerated his crappy behavior for years, but not anymore. Karma is real. A few weeks ago, I tried tracking down the person I sold the ring to, and luckily, I found her, and she still had the ring. I didn't even think that it would be possible, but I explained the situation and told her that it would mean everything to Nancy if I could give her at least one thing back. After a lot of consideration, I was finally able to buy back the ring at a much higher price than I sold it for, and I gave it to Nancy. The smile on her face when she saw it was worth more than anything I could have paid. I could never give her back everything she lost, but I was glad to help out in some way. Hello, it's been almost 5 months. Wow, I'm here to say one thing. I got divorced. I have custody of both kids. Josh didn't put up a fight at all. He had no money to do so. He just agreed to the terms and got over with it. I know my celebrating might come across as harsh to a lot of you in the comments, because many of you are taking his side and calling me evil, but I don't care. You can marry him now and see how wonderful he is for you. Good luck. He somehow managed to pay back Nancy everything he owed. I just hope he hasn't stolen from anyone again. Nancy and the kids are doing great. In fact, I am taking the kids this summer to stay with grandma and meet their cousins. They're all super excited, and so am I. With that, I'm thinking I'm going to end this thread. Bye. And that was a wrap up for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Go ahead and smash the like button for me and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again. We will be seeing you in the next one.